If you're looking for a new way to support Side Mission, check out Dubby.gg, an energy supplement company trying to make a difference. Make sure to use code SIDEMISSION for 15% off your order. Thank you, Dubby, for sponsoring this episode, and we hope you enjoy.
Welcome into the newest episode of Side Mission. I, like always, am your host, Rusty Ellis, joined by the boys, Matt Beck and Kyle. And today we are finally getting back on Twisted Metal because somebody, and I'm not going to name names who, forgot to watch episode 5 last week, okay? I'm not going to name names who it was. You're safe here. This is a safe place. It definitely wasn't me. It definitely was not me that didn't watch episode 5 last week when we were supposed to record this. But episode 5, you two had hyped this episode up a lot for me. Y'all said this is where the show really starts to get good. You said this, Kyle, you specifically said this was your favorite or one of your favorite episodes? What did you say?
This was probably my second favorite episode next to the season finale.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, that makes sense. Y'all hyped me up a lot on it. Matt said it was really damn good as well. After watching it, as of right now, I'm about 20 minutes off of watching it finally. It only took me 2.5 weeks. I can see why y'all hyped it up. This was a great episode, and I feel like I've said this pretty consistently over the last couple of episodes we've done over Twisted Metal, and if you've listened to all of them, you're going to hear me say a lot of those same things again. It feels like at a certain point, the writers and everyone involved with production figured out where this show's sweet spot was. And it seems like they've gotten better and better over the last 2 to 3 episodes. And again, I've said that a lot over the last couple of reviews that we've done for this, so forgive me if it sounds like a broken record, but it's true. The writing's gotten a lot better, the humor's a lot better, and the action has been great the whole time. So Kyle will just jump right in. I think one thing I was really excited about in this episode, just the fact that Sweet Tooth was back in an episode a lot more. That was one of like my biggest takeaways from this episode was finally we get to see more Sweet Tooth.
Yeah, this I think was his the second episode was good, but it was more so focused on just his reactions with John Doe and Quiet, and this got to show, Sweet Tooth in some carnage. I mean, the way he just rolled in there and started hacking people apart, that shit was so badass. And then he recruited everybody with him. I thought that it was really cool that they gave us some more of that, hey, we're still here with this, with this death and destruction, this gore. Because the last episode, it was, a lot more character development focused, and this one was just straight action. The interactions between Sweet Tooth and Stu were hilarious. And I love that, he just kind of took to him like a little brother. Yeah, dude, this episode is honestly, in my opinion, where the show really kicks off. Because from here, through the last few episodes, I think there's so much action, and it's not bad that the first half of the season, focused a lot more on character development and a lot more on, trying to hit you in the feels sometimes and throwing jokes around. But I'm really glad that, this is where shit gets going. But yeah.
Absolutely. No, I agree on every account. I think specifically on Sweet Tooth and Stu, you mentioned, like, I didn't even think about, like, kind of the little brother dynamic. But that really is what it feels like. It feels like an older brother just kind of, at first, picking on or toying with a little brother, but then you kind of see that adoration and that love kind of show up. And I like that. I also kind of like the hint at at one point, I think the last time we see Sweet Tooth and Stu, I like the hint at them kind of building a little bit of a following almost. We've talked a lot about how the different groups and the different factions in this show have been some of the more interesting parts of it, especially specifically with the convoy in the last episode. That was one of the most interesting parts of the entire show for me, was just this idea of this faction that is always on the go, always on the move. They're in these semis that are just fucking massive, that look like 1275 Tyler Place at its peak, and Matt will get that joke. But I like kind of that idea of like Sweet Tooth almost kind of maybe building the beginning of as Stu calls it, a fan base of his own, a bunch of adoring followers of his own. I kind of like that, and I'm interested to see if that goes anywhere. If it doesn't go anywhere in this season, then I'm sure when we get inevitably season two, I hope it goes somewhere with that. Um, Matt, we've mentioned the writing, and it's gotten a whole lot better. I mentioned several times that episode one and episode two kind of worried me because I wasn't exactly sure what they were going for. There were moments of character building that were sincere. There were also some dumbass moments that just kind of felt like they were there just for the slapstick humor of it all, and that was it. Um, I don't know what it is about the writing that has gotten better, but it seems like, in my opinion, and I'll let you tell me if you agree, I feel like they've been able to balance the humor, the action, the gore with the sincere moments in the show.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is because I believe the show has really come into its own. Whereas the last episode was a more serious take on these characters who have a more somber story going on, and then this episode definitely brings back the slapstick humor, the gore that we love to see, especially the whole scene with Sweet Tooth that we just talked about. But the other thing that I liked about this episode is that there was a little bit more going on outside of the whole thing with Sweet Tooth, which was we finally get to see exactly, Agent Stone's like area because
Mika, yeah.
Quiet ends up going there after she basically tricks John into taking that drink with the flour that's in it and he ends up passing out. So, she takes advantage of that and she takes the car and she goes straight to where Agent Stone is. And one of the first things that we end up seeing is just the seriousness that comes from this man because there is literally a dead body with a dog leash and collar on it that says pick up after your pet. So this man was basically brutally murdered because he did not pick up after his dog. Um, so
Yeah.
definitely they found that sweet spot where not sweet spot with Sweet Tooth. I'm sorry, I make myself laugh, but they found the sweet spot. I think that they finally got it because this especially there's a moment where Quiet is driving to the little city to and I think it isn't Topeka.
Mika, yeah.
Yeah, so she's driving to Topeka, and she has a conversation with her brother pops up in the back seat loud, and he's talking to her, and she's like, they're just joking around like they did when he was alive, just because they're siblings. He's joking about how she has feelings for John, but the thing is, he is dead. He's not there, so it's like she's having that inner turmoil within her about going to. She feels guilty for what she did to John, and on top of that, all she can think about is getting revenge by going to Topeka to kill Agent Stone.
Yeah, and I thought the interactions between Quiet and her brother, I thought that was the other thing besides Sweet Tooth being back. That was the other thing from this episode where I was like, this is where the writing is clearly improved. It's in those little interactions like that because again, it knows how to balance the serious with the somber. It knows or the serious with the silly, I guess say somber silly. I don't know how I mixed that up, but not editing that out. That's for suckers. That adds more work. So post production Rusty, do not edit that out. Um, but I love the interaction. Like specifically, I like the little joke of when he's looking in the mirror and he goes, "Is this how you remember me? You've got the bullet hole here and everything." And then she kind of just gets this little grin on her face and she reimagines him real quick, and he pops up and the bullet hole's gone. And it's just little things like that that I liked. It was those little interactions that I felt made me invested in this episode. Um, I don't necessarily want to talk about the nasty old man that wakes John Doe up, but I guess we kind of have to because that was pretty funny. I'm not gonna
That was
lie.
very disturbing. I was very disturbed.
I remember just sitting there watching it, going, "What the fuck is going on?" Like that was really the only thing I could sit there and think of. So it's this dude that I'm trying to avoid saying certain words. I know I just said fuck, but I mean I'm trying to avoid saying other words that could get us in trouble. Is this some dude that like I guess just molests dead bodies? Like I was just like I was watching. I think I said those words out loud just to my cat who was on the couch with me. I was like, Katara, what is this? Like
Yeah.
what is going on? But I will say, I thought it was funny. I also thought, Kyle, that the moment John Doe throws the knife at him and misses, that's one of the low key funniest moments in the show.
Absolutely. I thought that shit was hilarious. Yeah, dude, that was definitely one of the weirder parts. When, you see John Doe being dragged off, I was like, oh, what's gonna be happening here? And then it turns out to be this creepy old perv dude. Oh, and then what was he wearing? The gas mask,
Dude,
dude. Why
you were
did they?
like the gas mask jockstrap. Is
That
that what
was
it's called?
so gross, bro.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I had forgotten about that part. Now I wish I could burn it out of my brain. But
Yeah, that was a moment.
yeah, yeah, that was not one of the best parts of this episode. I tell John Doe threw the knife at him. That was funny as shit. But yeah, I also liked what when Matt talked about how Quiet went to go see the town that Agent Stone has taken over. That was another cool part of us getting to see the real inner workings of this faction and how they are real serious about keeping the law, which is like their whole thing. They're the new cops, but the way that they take it to the extremes in order to get these citizens to behave, it was really a way to show how fucked up and twisted this society that Agent Stone has built is. I think without they did a lot without saying a lot, which I like because they it wasn't really focused on even that much. If you looked away for 15, 20 seconds, you would have missed that part. But um, yeah, I gotta say the Agent Stone. I'm forgetting the actor's name for some reason. Thomas Hayden Church.
I'm Ted
Um,
Church, yeah.
he gets a lot better. I think in the very beginning he didn't really get a lot of screen time and he was kind of very one-sided and basic, but until we got to see that flashback episode, that was really good. But I think that these next few episodes are really going to hook you on Aegis Stone as a bad guy because I like him, but where he currently stands, he's just kind of run of the mill. And, I don't know. Until when Quiet really gets in here, she starts seeing shit. That's when I started to really have my questions about him. Like, holy shit, how far is this guy willing to go? In order to protect and serve.
Well, I think what's interesting about that is you mentioned somebody that's willing to go to like the utmost extremes in order to keep the peace or to keep law and order, quote unquote. And I think that like seeing again, pick up after your dog. I think seeing that like that kind of shows you like this is how far they're willing to go. That your animal shits on the shits on public property and you don't pick it up. I mean, we see what they did because of that. So it's all
Yeah.
kind of fed. We saw in the flashback episode, we saw a lot of control issues with Agent Stone. We saw how he was treated by several, members of society before society fell, and that's kind of where this level of or these control issues really kind of spawned from. And I think they're starting to make good on that character arc, on that character development, because now we're seeing up close and personal why it is or just the extremes that he's willing to go to keep again that law and order. So it's really interesting. I thought that the chase scene with him and Quiet was really good. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the little fake out with the little ass cop car, it was funny, but that was obvious a mile away. It was I was like, if this is what Agent Stone is coming after her in, this little basic Putnam County Sheriff's cop car. Shout out Putnam County Sheriffs if y'all listen to this. I love y'all because y'all have never pulled me over. But it was obvious, but it was a really, really funny fake out just because I was like, really? There's no way, right? And then the chase happens, and I will say the ending of this episode is yet another reason why I'm glad that even though I've watched it kind of on a week-to-week basis, I'm glad that every episode came out right away. Because I could not imagine having to wait a week to see what happens, even though I probably will, after the conclusion of this episode. Because Kyle, we talked about it in the group chat right after I got done with it, and it's dude, like I don't know what happened next. You guys know what happens next. I don't know what happens next, and my mind is all over the place for what the possibilities could be.
Yeah, let me tell you, this show really kicks off, and also like I think one thing that I want to go back and kind of touch on as well was when Sweet Tooth was kind of going to town in that facility at the dam. The interactions between Stu and Mike, because there was that part where Stu could have sold out Mike. He could have, because he saw him and he told Sweet Tooth, that nothing was there, nothing was going on. But man, I'm gonna be honest, I probably would have sold him out because Mike
I
has been a
definitely would have.
dickhead to him. Like, do what, Rusty?
I definitely would have. I was agreeing with you.
Oh yeah, and that really shows, I think, how good of a person that Stu is, and it kind of makes me worried with him going with Sweet Tooth that we're about to see him turn into a completely different person. But I thought that showed a really big moment for Stu not ratting on him, because Mike absolutely would have, as we saw. Which is interesting because in the games, Mike and Stu were actually a pair. They weren't, at odds. They were friends. So I thought that was a really cool shakeup. But Matt, we gotta talk about the ending of this episode. Cause holy shit!
Yep.
I mean, if you've
Yep.
watched the rest of the series, so you know.
Yeah.
Don't you dare spoil it.
No.
I'm not talking about spoilers. I just wanted to say the last one thing I love about this episode is that we kind of got car combat back, which isn't something that
Yes.
we've been getting too much of. So that whole confrontation with Agent Stone and his vehicle and with Quiet, I loved it because that's what the basis of Twisted Metal is car combat. So when we get that, it gets me really excited. Plus, I love the fact that just when you thought it was going to be over for Quiet. But she's also like one of the main characters, but you can't tell with a show like this. You don't know if they're going to kill off an important character, but I was hoping not so, because I do want to see her come to a satisfying conclusion for her character arc. But so when John pulls up, and I think Evelyn, am I saying that correct?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're saying that right. Yeah.
But I like the fact that it's, because early on in the episode, he's going through his CDs, and he finds the CD for Hanson, and this is the old Bop song. I don't know if you guys ever heard that song, but it was very stuck in your head back in the 1990s. Yeah,
it
was like the early 1990s.
Kyle and I are not going to be dated like that.
But you hear the song, so it's like, because it's a little reference back to like the beginning of the early on in the episode when John's going through his CDs and he finds one, but and he ends up using the blood missile that they got from the previous episode. So that was really cool to see that he managed to figure out where Quiet was, and he came and rescued her at the end before Agent Stone finished her off. And then you're kind of like, well, shit, what happened to Agent Stone? You know what I mean? Because dude just blew up, right? So, car combat is what I want to see more of at this show. But I kind of get it's more probably the show probably didn't have the biggest budget, and I think that something like that probably is on the more expensive side of things when it comes to the show. So if there is a second season, I do hope that they integrate more of that into it.
I will say, I think that if the show gets a second season, I'm excited because I think that it'll get a bigger budget. I think it's reviewed well enough and has done well enough to where it's deserved it. And I don't think anybody can really argue that. Obviously, we've only got a couple episodes left to review, but I am excited to see how this thing wraps up. And I'm probably, whenever we do get off here, I know I say this every time, but I probably actually will this time. I probably will go and watch the next episode immediately because I do want to know what happens next. And there's been a couple moments this season where I've been like, ooh, I really want to know what happens next, but I've not really been committed enough to go and watch it immediately. Now I'm kind of like, okay, you've got me hooked, and you've got my full attention now, Twisted Metal. So episode 5, really, really solid episode. Excited to see where episode 6 goes for sure, but I think that's a good place for us to call it an episode. So that is going to do it for this episode of Side Mission. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Side Mission Pod. You can check us out on Facebook as well at Side Mission Podcast. For the boys, for Matt, for Kyle, I'm Rusty. Thanks for listening.